Former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley has begun her campaign for the presidency. She joins me for her first post-declaration interview. I begin this hour, though, with an old friend. Undersecretary of State Keith Krach in the Trump administration led the effort to bring accountability to the Chinese Communist Party's theft of our intellectual property to get clean technology. He joins me from Washington this morning. Good morning, Mr. Secretary. Great to have you back.
Oh, Hugh, it's always a pleasure. Great to see you.
Now, tell me first, how goes the effort at Purdue? I know you're pouring your lifeblood into making Purdue not just an engineering great school, but now a national security great school.
Yeah, I think now Purdue is recognized as the top national security university in the United States, other than, I would say, the military academies. And there's so much going on. And I think one of the things that really sticks out is they're on the cutting edge of technology research for all the national security tech sectors. And that's why we formed the Krach Institute for Tech Diplomacy at Purdue.
It's a great breakthrough. Tell me what you would like to see them drive home to their undergraduates and graduates about China, building off of the big hearing that Mike Gallagher chaired on the Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party on Tuesday night.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's about developing that next generation of transformational leaders of tomorrow, and to understand that, look, in order to secure our freedom, we have to secure our technology. And technology must advance freedom, because they can be used for good purposes or bad purposes. And that's one of the reasons why, yesterday we launched the Global Tech Security Commission. And this is backed by Congress. We announced 10 honorary co-chairs, 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans from Congress. They're top foreign policy lawmakers. And this effort is all about creating a global tech security strategy for the free world. We've got 15 country commissioners, 12 tech commissioners, and 20 strategy commissioners. And each one of those has probably between 6 to 10 advisory council members. So this is a big effort.
Well, tell me, how is that going to operate? Where is it going to be located? How often will it get together? Will they work in hand with the Gallagher Committee, which I think is so important to educating America? How's the commission going to work?
Yeah, by the way, this is a result of a direct request, and we'll be testifying for the China Select Committee. I just talked with Mike on Monday. That's why we made the announcement yesterday. We held a big reception in the Capitol for this. So it is it's hand in hand, because it is long overdue that we have a national conversation about the most urgent threat to the free world, and that's the Chinese Communist Party. So the timing couldn't be more perfect.
Secretary Krach, I don't know if you read Ellis items every morning. It's the last thing I read before I go on the air. And the first thing this morning is that Xi is about to purge a whole group of people in China to take over the tech sector and the finance sector in ways, he's already omnipresent, but now it's going to be Maoist. He's going to act. What do you make of that? And will he screw it up, or will he make it better?
Well, he's going to take total control over this. And this is one of the reasons, Hugh, why a number of months ago, I penned an article in Fortune magazine that was titled, "Present Your China Contingency Plan at the Next Board Meeting." So now I'm seeing some of the most respected board members in America demanding from their CEO a China contingency plan, because if you think about what is a board member's responsibility, it is all about mitigating risk for their shareholders. And so one of the things at the Krach Institute, we've been getting a lot of requests. Hey, what does a China contingency plan look like? Can you provide us a checklist? And we're just about ready to put that out. This is critical for corporations.
Undersecretary Krach, you just made me think of ESG and DEI, because Joe Biden is going to veto the ESG bill this morning. If ESG actually looked at Chinese human rights violation, if DEI actually encouraged ideological diversity and brought in people aware of the communist threat, I'd be all in favor of it. But you're a corporate veteran, and you're a State Department veteran, and you know about the threat from the Chinese Communist Party. What do you make about ESG and DEI in America?
Well, I can tell you, ESG. By the way, we just put out a case study on ESG in the solar. It's been taught a couple of times at Wharton. And what it lays out for the students is, there's probably 3 reasons why there should be no Chinese company in ESG. And it's because of E, S, and G. Because E is environmental. And these guys are the biggest polluters in the world. They make their solar panels with the 2 biggest coal-fired power plants in the world. S, that's social. So that stands for human rights. They are shipping slave labor all over China. They're committing genocide. And then G, governance, the most important issue there are fiduciary responsibilities. Now, none of these companies are transparent, and you can't audit their books. So for those 3 reasons, there should be no companies in ESG. And it lets the students kind of...
No Chinese companies. If an American company embraces ESG, they should have no investments in China, period, right?
Yeah, and there should be no, in all these, 431 BlackRock emerging market funds where the Chinese companies are sprinkled in everywhere. They use the MSCI index. And all these guys claim that, these are ESG funds, these are ESG companies. So no Chinese companies and no funds with these Chinese companies should be considered ESG. It's just absolutely hypocritical.
Yeah, I don't think you can stress this enough, and I didn't know you had a Wharton case. I hope they take it up at HBS, at Chicago, all the other great business schools. How long did it take to develop that? How's it being received by our woke generation of MBA students? Do they realize ESG is incompatible with CCP?
By the way, I'll tell you, it was really enlightening for these students. And I just met with the dean of Georgetown Law School on Monday. We're probably going to teach it there. We've taught other cases at Harvard and Stanford along those lines. We taught the Clean Network case. We taught the Chips and Science Act case at Stanford. So I think the students, they are open, and I think they understand, particularly with Putin's bloody invasion of the Ukraine. They could see that, look, you have to fight for freedom. And and freedom is worth fighting for. And sometimes you have to put your life on the line for it. And I think these guys are really smart. And they can see the tie-in between China and Russia, the totalitarian twins. So I think this generation coming up, I've got a lot of confidence in it.
You call it the totalitarian twins, Secretary Krach. I refer to the new axis of evil because I think China runs Iran and Russia as proxy states, as sort of. So, what do we do about that? How do you educate a new generation of Americans who are just not up to speed on what superpower competition means?
Well, the first thing I think they got to understand is superpower advantage is not static, and we have to fight every day. In terms of national security, right? You and I, we grew up in Ohio, the white picket fence, the dog, 2.5 children. I was 0.5 because I had 2 sisters. We have to fight every day to preserve this 250-year-old experiment because it goes against all the laws of physics, because the natural order thinks is the bad king, the dictator, and the emperor. And technology is now the battleground because our rivals are playing a 4-dimensional game of military, economic, diplomatic, and cultural chess. And the crossroads of that is technology. That's the battleground. And they have little respect for rule of law, sovereignty of nations, the environment, human rights, all these things that protect our freedoms. And so you've got to do something about it. And I think that's what the China Select Committee is about. That's what the commission's about. That's what the
Last question. Mr. Secretary, you are a member of the board world. You know Silicon Valley. Have they woken up to China?
Well, it's interesting you asked that. I hosted 36 of the top CEOs in my home a few years ago when I was undersecretary, and I had them go around the room and talk about China. It was a safe environment, and their China horror stories. And I can tell you, it was cathartic, it was enlightening, and it was frightening at the same time. And at the end of the night, you could probably divide the CEOs into three categories. One is, hey, they've been burned over there. They're not going back. You know, they go in with full body armor if they have to do business there. There's another group that they're just cha-chinging it, just making money. But probably the biggest group was, oh, that happened to you? Yeah, tell me more. So
keep growing that. Secretary Krach, it is always great to see you. Keep Krach, keep coming back, keep sounding the alarm. Stay tuned, America. I'll be right back on the Hugh Hewitt Show.